Welcome, everyone. I'm Tiki Barber. I'm excited to invite you all into our conversation with Eddie George and Brian Berger here on Thuzio. Eddie is awesome. He is a superstar on the football field, and he's a star on the stage, and he's still acting. And I'm sure Brian will get into that. With no further ado, it is exciting for me to introduce Brian Berger. He is the host and founder of the award-winning Sports Business Radio podcast. Brian has interviewed the biggest names in sports and in business and on Sports Business Radio since he launched his show back in 2014. So without further ado, Brian Berger, who will introduce you and have a conversation with the great Eddie George. Enjoy.
Tiki, thanks so much. Really happy to be here. Sports Business Radio presented by Thuzio. Like Tiki mentioned, Eddie George is my guest. 9 seasons with the NFL's Tennessee Titans. He's the Titans' all-time leading rusher. He's the NFL Rookie of the Year in 1996. 1995, Heisman Trophy winner at Ohio State. He starred on Broadway, played Billy Flynn in the play Chicago. He starred in one of my favorite shows on HBO, Baller, with The Rock. He actually had a fight scene with The Rock. We'll ask him about that. And he earned his MBA from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. You can find him on Twitter at EddieGeorge2727. Eddie, thanks so much for joining me on Sports Business Radio. How are you?
I'm doing well. I deeply apologize about the snafu. I promise you I'm not 30 minutes late. It was a problem. I appreciate everybody. Hopefully we're patient with everything. Thank you for having me on. You know, it's an honor. My brother Tiki Barber, who's played the NFL as well, who has maybe 4 yards in terms of career yards more than me. He always teases that. He's also a Broadway star. He's a superstar. He's probably already done this already, but it's always good to see my man and be willing to share my story with you guys.
So you look great. You look like you could still play. I think, you need to suit up so that you can get in front of Tiki on the all-time leading rush list. But you're a big yogi, aren't you?
You know, I've been doing yoga since 1997, and I still have trouble getting into a down dog. You know, my lower back, shoulder, all of that. But I've always enjoyed looking outside the regular scope of things in terms of how you typically work out with just lifting and running. I was always big into the complete person, body, mind, and the spirit. And yoga allows me to get into that. Now, I have to be completely honest with you. When I began yoga, it was for different reasons. I mean, there were some really good-looking girls in there with yoga fans. And my teammates used to tease me, saying, "Oh, Eddie, you're doing yoga. It's such a girly thing." I was like, "Hey, don't come. I'm good." It was me and about 20 other women. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. But when they caught on, that's when they started hating on my game a little bit with the ladies. So, but yoga's been, I still practice. I still do it. It helps me with the daily stresses of life. I think a lot of other athletes have embraced that as a practice.
I watched LeBron last night. Season 18, 46 points, almost has a triple-double. Like, this guy is a human marvel. And I look at some of the athletes like him and how they keep themselves in peak physical condition now that allows them to play this long. Tom Brady, 43 years old, going to be playing in the Super Bowl. Was it that way when you were playing, or have things gotten better where it's allowed athletes to play longer now?
You know, it's funny you say that because I've been going to like a hyperbaric chamber, cryotherapy, compression, all of that stuff within like the last week, just working on trying to stay healthy and try to feel good, just getting out of bed. And that none of that stuff was around. All we had was an ice tub that you had to share with like 2 other guys. I mean, you had to schedule an appointment to get into the ice tub. It was only one. But it's truly remarkable that now guys are really looking at their bodies as their craft, but also longevity for their careers that can play a very long time. When I first got into the league, you know, I had to eat differently. I used to eat fast food, and guys would smoke at halftime and drink beers at halftime. Well, now, you're getting IVs, and you're getting your hyperbaric chambers, and you're getting your adequate rest, plant-based diets. None of that stuff was ever heard of back in the early 90s. And early 90s, 2000. And now, with technology and innovation and how guys are recovering better and training differently, they're able to sustain longer careers. And the rules of the game has changed for both basketball and football. Is not as physical. So you're able to play longer, more effectively, and have more production because of that. But it is remarkable that LeBron and Tom Brady and a lot of athletes are having longer, successful careers at the top of their game.
Yeah. All right. I want to go back to the beginning for you. You're a Philly guy. Mm-hmm. How does a Philly guy wind up at Ohio State? Why not Penn State, Pitt? You have some good schools in Pennsylvania. How do you get to Ohio State?
Well, I wanted to go to Penn State and play running back. But long story short, I wasn't a very good student in high school. My mom sent me to Fort Q Military Academy in Virginia my junior year, and I went there for 2 years, my high school year, and a postgraduate year. And I've done enough there, obviously, to get attention from Ohio State. And they were on the only school that promised to let me play running back, or at least compete at running back. They might have been lying at the time, but it was just something about the tradition of players. I love the locker room. I love my teammates at the time. I had a good feeling about them. They pushed me to really dig deep in myself to reach my maximum potential. So when I walked on the campus, I just knew it. It wasn't anything where they promised me a jersey number or the world or a starting position. I just wanted to compete. And they said, hey, if you come, you're not going to start probably, but you have a chance to compete at running back, and that's all I wanted.
Was John Cooper your coach there?
Yes, he was. John Cooper, yep.
And what kind of a coach was he? I mean, he had a lot of success. You guys had a lot of success there, but he seems like he would have been a fun coach to play for. Yeah,
Coop was he was later in his career, and he had everything mapped out. He was like the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and he was an awesome recruiter. Got a lot of talent to come to Ohio State. And, he was and still is a fabulous motivator. He knew how to motivate us, to get us ready for games, and genuinely interested in you as a person. So he never really coached the player. He really coached the person. And it was a lot of fun playing for him.
It seems like all past Ohio State athletes, whether it's football, basketball, anything, Buckeye Nation is a tight-knit group. You still keep in contact with everyone. And I saw when they played in the championship against Alabama, you were very vocal about how you thought they were going to do.
Yeah, I still keep up with them. In fact, right now I'm in Florida with two of my former teammates, Raymond Harris and Joey Galloway, playing golf and doing what guys do. So we're actually here right now doing that. So we really stick together. The guys I played with, the guys that were before me and certainly after me, we try to keep a network going and try to be bridge builders, if you will, to show them some of the pitfalls, the mistakes that we might have made, the successes that we've had, just a blueprint on to be successful during your playing days and certainly after your playing days, because what you buy into is that once you're a Buckeye for life, and there's a responsibility to pass that torch on to the next generation.
How's your golf game there in Florida?
It's terrible.
Why? Come on. What do you need to work on? Everything? You're like me, or?
What I need to work on? maybe I should just work on throwing these clubs out the door. Garbage. No, but I'm working on everything: putting, chipping, my swing with my irons. Right now, focusing on shallowing my club versus coming over the top like slamming the ball. So I'm trying to shallow it, and it's a very daunting and hard sport to take on later in life. Because I really never played golf during my playing days. It's something I picked up relatively recent, the last few years, and you have a new appreciation for the sport, have a new appreciation for Tiger Woods and all of the championships that he has won. It's hard to win one, let alone 15, 16, or however many he's won so far. So it is a gentleman's game. It's a wonderful game, and something that I can play hopefully until I'm about 127 years old.
That would be awesome. So, all right, let's go back to 1995, Heisman Trophy ceremony. You and Tommy Frazier from Nebraska are the two favorites for the Heisman, one of the closest Heisman votes ever. When you're in that room and you've got to speak in front of everyone and you see the past Heisman Trophy winners, who were you most excited to see in the room, and how nerve-wracking was that?
It was very nerve-wracking, but it was also an accomplishment to get in the room. One is an accomplishment.
Yes.
Think about it. You failed to mention that Danny Werfel was also in the room, who was the next year's Heisman winner, 96. And Darnell Autry from Northwestern, and Troy Davis, who rushed for 2,000 yards back-to-back at Iowa State. So it was some really good football players in that room that night. And not to mention Tony Dorsett, who was a great running back for University of Pittsburgh. He played at Dallas so many years, and I grew up watching him. Earl Campbell, Mike Rozier, Archie Griffin, Marcus Allen, Tim Brown. I mean, the list goes on and on. And this was at the Downtown Athletic Club, the old DAC, where they had a banquet room with all of the portraits, painted portraits of each Heisman winner that was backlit on the walls, on the oak walls. And when you walked in the room, you got a sense like, ooh, this is different. This is special. And so it was really an overwhelming, intimidating environment for me, but one that I'll never forget for the rest of my life.
Was there someone in that room that you really wanted to meet that night? You mentioned Tony Dorsett, Earl Campbell, some of these guys that came before you, Mike Rozier. Is there someone who you really wanted to say hello to that night?
Well, it's such a different, when you're up for the Heisman and you're in the room and you're a candidate, you're not necessarily focused on meeting someone. You're in essence like, I hope I win the damn thing.
Yeah.
It's like going on stage, or you're going before the world, and you're not really thinking about, who's in the room that I can meet, because the pressure is there to win it, and you're on pins and needles. There's a lot of anticipation that you have to manage. So I really wasn't thinking about that. But after I won the award, I was like, well, who's in the room? I would like to, once I was able to breathe a little bit.
How did winning the Heisman change your life?
Oh, it changed my life for the better. Obviously, I think it's you're never forgotten. You're always remembered. Your legacy is forever cemented. It gets better with time. You really appreciate all the doors, the opportunities, the people that you have an opportunity to meet in your life walk as a Heisman Trophy winner. You're in an elite group of men that share the same award as you. So it's changed my life for a lot of great reasons, because I can do things now and go places that people always know that I won the Heisman. I'm forever linked to that for the rest of my life.
I want to get your thoughts on the state of college football right now, specifically this last year. We're in a pandemic. there were a lot of people that thought maybe we shouldn't be playing football. There were a lot of teams that got COVID, and some of the players were okay, and some had complications of having COVID. But I thought, and a lot of other people have thought, if there was ever a year where the college athlete was turned into an essential worker in order to keep the money from the TV contracts and the millions of dollars that are related to college sports, this was that year. What did you think about playing this season? And I'm sure even dating back to when you played, there's been talk of college athletes being paid and getting what you're worth while the sport is making lots and lots of money. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, for one, you have to commend each and every athlete, staff, coaches, everyone involved in putting on a season this year for college sports. It was very difficult trying. You had to be relatively flexible, nimble, agile with your schedule, understanding, because COVID was the biggest opponent for everyone. It wasn't Alabama. So that being said, I think we're moving toward a time when athletes are going to have to be compensated, because let's face it, when college football first began, it wasn't intended on becoming a business. It was recreation. But as time moved on, the popularity grew around the sport. It became bigger, garnered bigger stages, created huge personalities. There was a lot of interest nationwide, coast to coast, about college football. And it became a business, and corporations got involved. So it kind of grew. But what didn't grow along with that was the athlete, the appeal for the athlete, and the care for the athlete. It was looked upon that, hey, your education is the compensation for you to play football or basketball, whatever it is. But along those lines, it became $1 billion business over time. And again, the athlete was still ignored and not included in that. The athletes drive revenue. We know that in college sports, there's a 4-year window, and then you're at your turnover, your throughput, and then you're out, and it's another level. But I think there's enough room. There's certainly some smart people out there that can figure out a way where athletes can be compensated. It may not be in terms of a paycheck as an employee, but they have to be allowed to make money on their likeness, or be able to sell things or with their name on it. And they've been doing it when I was playing, before I was playing, certainly after. So why not bring it to the forefront, realize it is what it is, build a business model around it that appeases everyone, and go in that regard. So, we're at that place now where athletes are no longer in the dark about how much these universities are making on their backs. And I think it's apparent that, hey, they need to be allowed to do something. And, it's a shame that the NCAA they have an opportunity to say, how can we make this work, instead of saying, hey, we're still going to live by the rules from 1950, that education is the compensation and they should be grateful and thankful. And they're making billions of dollars on these athletes' back with TV contracts, added games, the playoffs. And if the playoffs expand to more teams, guess what? That means more money. So there has to be a way you compensate these kids, because the coaches are taking advantage of it with $1 million contracts. They're getting paid $8, $9, $10 million a year to coach. And these kids, barely have enough money to pay their rent on time. So, something needs to be done.
I completely agree with you. As far as the college football playoff goes, are you happy with how it is now? Do you think it needs to expand? If I put you in charge of that, how does that need to look?
I think we figured out this during COVID, which can be a blessing, is that college football can be flexible. I don't think you have to schedule out years and years in advance to schedule these games out, to get logistics down. I think now, when we saw what BYU was able to do with Coastal Carolina, able to do in 72 hours and put on a wonderful performance, it's possible that we can expand to an 8-game, or some people think a 16. I think 8's the number, that 18 playoff. Now it's just a matter of, putting the numbers around it, the business model around it that makes sense for everybody. But I certainly believe, you can be very creative now with the Power 5 conferences and the other 5 conferences in terms of how that looks from year to year. You can mimic what NCAA has done with the ACC versus Big Ten, one year, or the ACC versus Pac-12. And your non-conference games can look like that with one game from one of the smaller schools. So there's enough there for people for the powers that be to be innovative, be forward thinking and creative, to put the best product out there that can not only serve our student athletes, but certainly college football lovers and everyone involved.
You played running back. I watched Derrick Henry now play running back for Tennessee. What a big dude that guy is. How has the running back position changed since when you played?
Well, they don't emphasize one guy anymore like they used to. I think Derrick is probably the only back in the NFL that is the bell horse running back that they're relying on 60% of the time. Now you're seeing more, well, it's always been, but the last few years, a running back by committee, a specialty guy that comes in. You see a lot of teams doing that. That's how the position has changed. Now the run game is still you still need to have a running game to win, I believe. But we're not seeing one guy get all the carries and be a volume runner. Because you got to be special to do that. You got to be durable. You have to you have the right situation, and you got to think about Derrick is Derrick, but he also had almost a 4,000-yard passer and 2 1,000-yard receivers, not one but 2, which means that you're stretching the field and you have space to run. So he's been blessed with a great supporting cast. So, but certainly the running game is not running back centric now. It's more relegated toward the passing attack.
Did I see on Twitter or social media somewhere at Malcolm Jenkins's virtual fundraiser that you challenged Ryan Clark to try and tackle Derrick Henry for charity? Is that happening?
Yes, well, I don't think it is. Ryan is not going to. Ryan was talking tough behind the desk. From a cloth that he's gonna get after you. He threw his body in there on numerous occasions, without regard for his own or anybody's life. So he's a headhunter for sure. But I just found it interesting that he said, if I was out there, this is what I would do to Derrick Henry. I said, well, hell, let's make that happen. I'm pretty sure that would be good to see. He was talking on one of his ESPN shows, so I called him out on it. I'm like trying to stir up a little trouble.
That's good. We always need someone to stir the pot a little bit. All right. In 2019, the Titans retired your jersey. Mm-hmm. They retired Steve McNair's the same time, I think. The late Steve McNair. You guys were teammates. What was it like to have your jersey retired by the Titans?
That was unexpected. I typically, by their rules, you don't get your jersey retired unless you go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I guess Amy Adams Shrunk, the owner for the Titans, felt the need to bring closure to that era and pay homage to it. Her father, Bud Adams, drafted us, and we were the pioneers to bring NFL football to Middle Tennessee, the Middle Tennessee area, and be successful in our first few years. And she wanted to show us some love in that regard, and that felt amazing to have my jersey, that number never being worn by anyone. It's never been worn by no one but me in that uniform and that organization. I mean, and Steve as well. So it feels good to be recognized in such a way.
I love that team with the two of you. The late Steve McNair, what was it like playing with him? And for maybe some of the younger fans who didn't get to see him play, what type of a player was he?
Oh, wow. Well, Steve was in college. I was a big fan of Steve. He's a year ahead of me. He was up for the Heisman. He was throwing for 1 billion yards at Alcorn. You turn on the film, and it looks like he's in the backyard playing with little kids. Plays lasting a minute and a half. With Steve back there,
right?
Looting defenders, and he could run if he wants to. He can take his time. He can check the time on his watch. And then throw the football, throw it 60 yards downfield. It was amazing to watch this guy. So to play with him was an honor. And Steve, with all the Arabic McNair stuff, it was a process for him to reach that level during his career. Because when I got there, he was still trying to come under center because everything for him was in the shotgun. And he was getting the ball out fast and throwing it to athletes. Well, now you're in a run-controlled offense, and he has to hand the ball off and do off a play action. So he had to alter his game until he came up to speed with the pro game and became Arabic McNair. So he had to endure a lot of hardship, adversity, doubt. What people were saying about him, he was a bust. He wasn't a great quarterback. He can't throw, all this stuff, and that played on him. And he played with his heart on his sleeve. So, Steve was an awesome man, and we miss him every day.
Yeah, like you said, just he kind of, to me, was like a little bit like Patrick Mahomes before Patrick Mahomes. Like just there was so much going on, and everything was in slow motion for him, and he just had a cannon for an arm, and I think he was bigger than Mahomes, but he was kind of like Mahomes before Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, he could elude defenders. He could throw it any type of way. In fact, Steve, I think, was a pretty damn good baseball player too. So, he developed into one hell of a quarterback. One that won an MVP and 3 Pro Bowls. And the numbers don't really reflect his greatness and what he meant to our team and our city and our community. So he's vastly underrated, and I think he should be in the NFL Hall of Fame at some point in time.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, I want to discuss your post-football career. When I had you on Sports Business Radio before, I don't know if you remember that, but you told me about the 3 E's, and you said the 3 E's helped you with your transition to post-career. Share with us what the 3 E's are.
Yeah, the 3 E's are entrepreneurship, entertainment, and education. In my education, I went back, got my master's in business. Since then, I've been teaching, I was teaching at the Ohio State University at the Fisher School of Business, the business of professional sports, delving into our life in totality, the people you come across, the contracts, the bad business deals, the things that you're going to experience off the field, and dealing with family members, girlfriends, divorce, child support, all the things that can drive an athlete to go broke, financially and spiritually speaking. Under the entrepreneurship umbrella, it's been my core business is my wealth management business. And it goes back to an experience I had as an athlete where my first financial advisor almost walked away with my entire signing bonus. So I wanted to get up into the business to enlighten young men, but also to set up the proper infrastructure they should have when it comes to wealth management. And entertainment, and this lends to my career. You talked about the Heisman and how it's opened up doors. Well, it doesn't open up to a regular life or a 9 to 5. It all opens up to a slew of things. I've done commercials. I've been on stage. I've been behind the camera, in front of the camera, and I've enjoyed telling stories. And in life, and no matter what profession that you're in or what you call yourself, you're always telling a story. Always telling a story. If you're a doctor, lawyer, actor, businessman, salesman, you're selling something. So it's really helped me in that regard, and I've enjoyed telling stories, and no matter what medium. So that's in a nutshell. From a 60,000 foot perspective, that's what the 3 E's are.
Well, two things I want to follow up on. One, that class that you're teaching at Ohio State, I think should be a required class in every athletic department in America, right? Like, those are life skills, especially for athletes, that they're not usually taught until they go into a locker room at the pro level. And I think that's too late. The other is, you've been Billy Flynn in the Broadway play Chicago. That's got to be a different kind of nervousness compared to playing on the football field. You got to memorize lines. You got to perform. I mean, it is live theater right there. What's that like?
It's the same nerves you experience in a athletic setting are the same nerves you experience on the underneath the lights of a stage. It's the exact same, but it's channeled differently and it's approached differently. On the football field, I can be very aggressive, but on stage, it may require you to be quiet, require you to be still, but yet powerful in your speech and in your demeanor, and you have to be conscious of that. You don't memorize the words. You live, you breathe the words, you become the words. So when you're delivering a monologue, you're not just delivering a speech or a motivational speech. You are telling the story of this character, however it comes out. Snot may be coming out of your nose, spit flying everywhere, tears, or whatever it is. It's a very cathartic profession, and it's a very spiritual one if you open your body to allow that to flow through. And that's the one thing that I've learned, is always to tell the truth in imaginary circumstances. That's the essence of being an actor.
I give you so much credit. I think I would be far more nervous about being on Broadway than playing in a sporting event. And to go from what you were doing to that, I give you all the props in the world.
Hey, listen, I was like literally pissing down my leg. In New York City, in the Ambassador Theater. That was, because it's a grand opening. You have that's one of the greatest openings, I think, in all the plays, is Billy Flynn. It's the build-up and the dancers and the light, the bright light that comes in center stage. You come down the steps, and then you gotta drop those notes. That is, oh my God! You talk about nervous. My opening night, I'm backstage pacing like a panther. And I'm thinking, oh shit, what did I get myself into? I'm sorry about the curse, but I was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into here? Why am I up here? Like, I'm gonna go out here. What if I fall down the steps? Billy, it's supposed to be cool, but I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed that process, and hopefully, when COVID opens back up and Broadway opens back up, I can do it again.
So one of my favorite shows, I told you this before, on HBO, Ballers with The Rock. You were on that show as well. And like we discussed before, those weren't just cameos where you're passing by in the office and you're waving hi to someone. You had some pretty intense scenes with The Rock. What's that like? At least it's not live. You get to do a few takes probably, but you're across from The Rock and some pretty seasoned actors.
Yeah. It was intense. I recall, going through that time, because it's different from stage. You don't have a chance to build it up in the story. You gotta walk in front of the lights and go, like right now, and deliver whatever they're asking you to do. And in the beginning, I'm trying to get the lines down in my head, but also try to marry that with the emotion of it. And I'm thinking to myself, damn, that's the problem. Like, all right, check yourself, man. Get in there. You know, come on, Eddie, let's go. Like, this business, you know. So I had to get over that hump. Like, I'm really doing this with Dwayne Johnson right now. I'm thinking, what is he thinking right now? Is he thinking I'm terrible? You know, all that stuff. Like, you have to eliminate the distractions, and you just got to go. So it was a very emotional scene, and I was just saying whatever came to my mind, curse words, and I just kind of just used some things that I used in the past, like that I experienced in the past in that situation, and I would yell out for line if I didn't know it, and I would just say it, and they spliced it and cut it together, and you know, so it was a lot of fun doing it.
All right, we're a couple minutes away from questions coming in from our attendees and some people who are listening to us record this interview right now for Sports Business Radio presented by Thuzio. I've got to ask you about the Super Bowl. We've got Tom Brady against Patrick Mahomes, Chiefs, and the Buccaneers. It's going to be different. Only 22,000 fans are going to be allowed to be there. Not a lot of the pomp and circumstance that we usually have during Super Bowl week, but it is a 2-week layoff in between when they just played and when they're going to play the Super Bowl. You've played in big games. What's it like preparing for the Super Bowl?
Oh, well, we didn't have 2 weeks. We had one week to get ready. We didn't have a chance to enjoy being AFC champions. We had to literally enjoy that night, enjoy the mini parade that we got to the city, and the next day we were going to prepare for the Rams. Well, now with 2 weeks, you can sit back, lay in it, enjoy it, and kind of have a chance to exhale and realize you've done something special. Now for Tom Brady, this is like, you know, waking up and brushing his teeth. You know, he's in a championship every year, it seems like. And so he understands what it goes into it, the focus and so forth, to put into it. But it's a lot of fun. Everybody's watching. It's a dream fulfilled for many. I only played in one. Some guys played in 0. So enjoy it. Enjoy your teammates, because both teams will not be the same next year due, you know, to business reasons, salary cap, and all of that. So I would say enjoy the moment.
Super Bowl fits. Fashion has become such a big part of sports. I think you work with, is it Joanna Alba? Do you still work with her?
Yeah, I still do.
So, I mean, she's a designer to the stars like you. And what's your fashion style? And how much thought do you put into what I'm going to wear to an event like the Super Bowl or some of the parties?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a classic. I have a classic yet with a hint of contemporary style, like kind of what's out now. You know, I like to. These things change. You know, styles change. How clothes are fitting you, materials, colors. I know I love blacks. I love certain colors. I love certain pops of color here and there. But you know, I put a lot of thought into it, and I usually, you know, coordinate with Joanna. And I look at a lot of what the young people are wearing. But I'm not going to dress like a 13-year-old, but I'm going to at least have the style and the swagger of a 13-year-old, you know, to some degree. But I'm always looking for inspiration when it comes to fashion.
All right, we're going to go to some questions from our audience. Pat Ryan, his question is, what was the biggest thing that you learned coming into the league that you weren't prepared for?
The biggest thing that I learned coming into the league that I wasn't prepared for was the lifestyle. Having time and money that I never had in my life, and really not knowing what to do with it in terms of education. You know, what I thought $1 million was actually $1 million, but it's not. After taxes, it's significantly less. And after your agent fees and so forth. So I had to learn how to manage my money differently and my time differently, and really change the way I looked at wealth. So that was an eye-opening experience.
Pat has a follow-up question. What's the best menu item at Eddie George's Grill in Columbus? We'll give you a quick plug there.
Hey, I'll tell you, it's for me, it's the classic cheeseburger with bacon, bro. You cannot go wrong.
Oh, that sounds so good.
It's a 27 pound burger. It's for 27, right? So 27-pound burger. It's absolutely delicious.
Wow, that's a big burger.
Oh, it is. It is.
Andrew has a question.
27-ounce burger. I'm sorry.
I was like, 27 pounds. That's like a few people have to be sharing that.
Listen, I've been playing golf today, so I'm thinking about how I missed my line. So excuse me, not 27 pounds, 27 ounces.
All right, that definitely makes more sense.
The 27 burger will kill you on the spot.
Exactly. Well, you would need a few people to eat that.
Yeah.
Andrew says many pro athletes struggle when their careers end. How did you deal with that transition?
In short, I dealt with it. It was very difficult. I sought out counseling. I still work with a counselor, and that's helped me find out that, hey, you have to divorce from being just the athlete. You have to find out who you are, and in that regard, I think a lot of people go through that. That what's next phase if they've been in the profession for a very long time. And I've been able to do that again through finding what my purpose in life is, being a bridge builder, pouring into others. And if I do that, you'll be amazed at how the next step for you opens up in terms of what your life purpose is. So that's what I would say, has helped me, was seeking out help, realizing I needed the help, and be willing to accept the help.
I love that. And I think athletes are getting more and more comfortable with talking about mental health and going to therapy. And hey, you know what? We don't know it all. And sometimes we need some help from others. And here's what that looks like. And I think it empowers others to do the same.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Walter Farnham says, what is Eddie's most daunting task within professional sports?
What is my most daunting task in professional?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that means, but maybe is there something in sports that you feel that just really needs to be changed?
Specifically with football. I mean, you can always improve on something. You can always think that, hey, guys need better contracts, they need guarantees. But I think you have to understand the business. Number one, you've got to understand what you're getting yourself into. You can't rely on an agent, you can't rely on a liaison or your business manager. You got to be a student of yourself. You got to study it, period. And that's just not the playbook, but the playbook of life. Look at, 30 for 30 group. Look at some of the guys that made those key mistakes by whatever that is, in social media, or beating up some woman, or being at the wrong place at the wrong time, making sure you're making the right decision, knowing that you have a target on your back and people are always watching while you're playing and certainly after you're playing. So you've got to understand that. And the more that you understand that, you understand how the business works, then you're able to adjust, adapt, and have a secondary plan once your playing days are done, so you can continue to be successful.
Just a couple more questions. Ryan wants to know, Tiki Barber wanted us to remind you that he has 8 more rushing yards than you. With that said, who can flex the golden pipes on stage better, you or Tiki?
Well, I've never heard Tiki sing, so I can't speak. Listen, I know I can hold a couple notes here and there. I'm not going to break, try to come up with a record. I know where my lane is. But hey, Tiki got pipes. I go for George Washington. In fact, Tiki would make a great Aaron Burr in Hamilton. And a perfect Hamilton. Perfect. If you ever seen Hamilton, Aaron Burr, he would be perfect for that role.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Did you, when you became an actor on Broadway, did you have to take vocal lessons? Is that something that came naturally to you? I know aren't you married to someone who's a singer as well?
Yeah. My wife is a singer in SWV, but I want to be clear that I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, let me go and do Broadway. I had to work my way up to that. So I was in Nashville taking acting lessons 10 years prior to me even jumping on the Broadway stage. So, and a part of that process was singing lessons. And I took singing lessons to help us my speaking voice. And my acting coach always said, you have a voice, you can sing, you can play the role of Billy Flynn one day. And I'm like, woman, look, let's just get through this lesson. I'm not singing nowhere. And lo and behold, the opportunity came. It presented itself. I said, what the hell, why not? It'll make a great story if I get it, if I don't. So I went forward and got it, and I built confidence in my singing voice. And that's not what I do. My wife, rolls her eyes like, how the hell did you get on Broadway? And I'm the singer, I'm the performer. You got it, so, but she's been very helpful in my development in that area.
Oh, that's amazing. Good to have in-house assistants.
Yeah.
I wanted to take the opportunity to ask you about social justice initiatives in the NFL and just in the world in general. We've really seen more of that in the last year after the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. But is the NFL doing enough? Are we doing enough as a society?
I think it's not for me to determine that. It's for everyone. This is not just a Black issue. This is a human issue. It's an equality issue across the board of different races. It just so happens that it happens to African Americans more often. That's where the spotlight is. And that was the whole purpose behind Black Lives Matter. Yes, all lives matter. But in this day and time, in this instance, and what we're seeing is that the people that are protecting us are actually hurting us, and we are afraid of them. And I think you saw that the difference is, if you watched it in terms of how people were protesting and how they were treated in that regard versus what happened at the Capitol just a few weeks ago. And if you don't see that, then you really don't want to address the issue. So once you, as a person, and that's including you, to say, hey, this is not Eddie George's problem or his people's problem. This is our problem. How do we solve that? Then we're going down the right track and making real social change. And we can both say, here are our problems. This is the issue. What can we do about it? Not you or who's doing enough, but what can we do about it? And I know that people are saying, well, football players should just stick to playing football and this and that. Well, guess what? These football players have lives. They have families that are still there. We still experience things as athletes that the normal person doesn't. A lot of people look at me like, hey, he's not Black, he's an athlete. Well, no, I have an African-American experience. I went to schools where I was the only Black in the class, called the N-word on numerous keys, punching kids in the mouth. I've experienced that. So I know what it feels like. So I say that it doesn't exist, or to act like that, hey, we can throw some money at it. That's BS. You really have to come together and understand both sides and say, okay, we understand each other. Now, how do we get to a level of equality? And what does that look like? So, yeah, I mean, in the African-American community, there are definitely some other issues. There is, Black on Black crime like there is white on white crime, but we're talking about specifically the people that are to protect us, to protect and serve our needs as well. There's a difference in how that's being done, and that's clear and evident.
With equality, doesn't that start in the home? I mean, I know that's how I feel. I'm a parent, and I feel like it's my responsibility to teach my daughter about equality and, be around people of all colors and races and sizes and genders. And I feel, I mean, I don't want to turn this into a political show here, but I do feel like if we're going to be better as a society, a lot of that starts in the home with us as parents teaching our kids about that.
And a lot, you're right. A lot of that does start at home, and a lot of homes in terms of African Americans, the male is not there, the fathers aren't there. So they're either dead in jail, or not around. So, you know, that structure of having a mother and a father there, with teaching equality, whatever that is important. So I think the father figure is definitely needed in terms of those homes for kids that don't have a father, so they can be led down the right path, so they can understand that. And let's understand too, you know, what you're teaching your child about equality in that conversation is quite different than what I'm teaching my kids, because our experiences are completely different.
Right.
And there's not a right or wrong to that, but it is what it is. So if you're having that conversation and being honest about it and saying, hey, there is a privilege here, and we understand that, how do we break the barriers to that and bring a light to it? Say, hey, here it is. How do we address it together? And really come and find a happy medium with that.
I want to end on your experience at the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University, an excellent school. Again, you talked earlier.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Number one in the country, by the way.
Yeah. So, I mean, so you talked earlier about being an entrepreneur. What are you focusing on right now as an entrepreneur? You talked about wealth management earlier. And then some of the things that you learned at the Kellogg School of Management that have stuck with you to this day.
There was a course called Entrepreneurial Finance taught by Steve Rogers, who's now at Harvard. I went to Kellogg specifically for that class because I learned about him through the NFL when they had different educational modules at Harvard, Wharton, Kellogg. And I did the one at Harvard, and I said, okay, it was just a taste of getting my master's in business. It was like a 2-week deal. And I said, I'm going to go and get my master's. That inspired me to go get it. And what the learning wasn't necessarily in the classroom. I mean, you're learning about different case studies. You're learning about finance, accounting, operations, marketing, how to negotiate in class, but the learning happened outside of the classroom. So we was a very diverse group of people from across the world, from Russia, India, China, that flew every other week into Chicago to get this education. And that's where the learning happened. And it just really, for me, it was listening and speaking afterwards, but really listening to what they're saying and embracing that and growing from that perspective, from their own experiences. And from and what I'm doing now in wealth management is financial literacy. I think people don't understand how the basics of getting insurance and how insurance is much needed. And I'm tired of looking on social media at GoFundMe pages to bury their loved ones. And, you know, it really bothers me with that. So, and that's something that I didn't really know growing up myself. So understanding like, hey, insurance is you have to have it, whether you rent it in terms of term insurance, or you buy it in terms of whole insurance, or you finance in terms of premium financing, and how you can build generational wealth through those platforms, among others. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. Exciting
stuff. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on Sports Business Radio, presented by Thuzio. I don't know if we can bring Tiki in here. Can we bring Tiki in for 1 second and have him join me and Eddie? See if we can do that. There's Tiki.
There he is.
What's happening, guys?
What's up, everyone?
You're looking good, Baldy. Baldies, both of you.
Yeah, we're all three. Well, listen, I'm going to sign a 3-day contract next year.
If it takes you 3 days to get the 8 yards, something's wrong with you, Eddie.
Hey, you know what? The way my knees feel right now, it might take me 16 weeks to get 8 yards. You don't get it though.
I know it, brother. It's all respect. You know that.
Of course, man. I love you, man, and I pray all is well with you, all that you're doing in your life now, bro.
Yeah, most certainly.
Hey, when
Feeling
did
is
you guys
mutual.
meet each other? When did you guys meet each other for the first time?
You know, it's interesting, Brian. It's like a brotherhood. Like we met many times. I forget the first time we actually met, probably 1999 or something like that. But I mean, when you're in the NFL and you respect someone on the other team who may not even play against, you kind of feel like you know each other. So as soon as you meet, it's like you've known each other forever, because we all follow. I mean, I followed Eddie in college. I mean, he's a Heisman Trophy winner. I was a running back. How could I not know who he was? And I'm sure it was this other way around as well. You just you feel like you know these guys. Then you go to Pro Bowls together, and before you know it, it's like your brothers, even if you have minimal interaction. That's the beauty of the NFL. That's what happens individually on teams, but it also happens in the larger community at large.
Well, I'll tell you, when I first noticed Tiki, I know about his game as a running back and so forth. We were in Hawaii for the player rep meetings, and I was at the bar. And all of a sudden I look and I see this guy that was glazed down like oil wearing a Speedo. I'm like, is Tyson back here? Like, oh, I'm a big fan. Then I realized, I said, oh my God, oh, that's Tiki. I said, oh, okay. No, man.
Showing it off, man. Showing it off.
The confidence to wear a Speedo. Like, I was like in awe of that. So kudos for that.
Oh my God!
You know who could get away with? By the way, you know who could really get away with doing that? Your former teammate Javon Kirsch is. Have you seen him recently?
Man, he has like a 16 pack.
I'm telling you,
18 years old. I'm like,
he looks like he's a bodybuilder,
and he looks incredible. He
does.
Well, you guys are in great shape, both of you. You look like you could play tomorrow. So maybe you should just go back and forth with the 3-day contracts and see who can last the longest.
Well, as Eddie just said, I refuse to take hits anymore. It took me like 3 years to realize that I'm just not cut out for taking hits no more.
Right. All right. So if you're not going to play football, I think we need some sort of a sing-off here. That's safer. That's safer. And we got to see who has the pipes.
Well, so Eddie, did you get high notes in Chicago?
Oh, I got high notes. There's one long high note that I have to hit every night. So yeah, I did.
Yeah, I was the same way because when I come out on stage, I don't know if people know the story of Kinky Boots, but I was the antagonist. I was actually the bad guy. I was the thesis of the show, but I was the bad guy, and then obviously I changed my mind at the end. And at the end, when I'm walking, on stage and I'm at Milan for the shoe show, I have to say, it sets you free basically. And that's the highest note of the show. It's hard to get to. I mean, I used to sit in the back, like warming up for 10 minutes before I had to go out there, like, la, 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 just go into the range because it would kill your voice to go that high. I can't do it on spot.
Hey, Eddie, Tiki, I appreciate both of you. Thanks so much for joining me on Sports Business Radio. Tiki, thanks for letting us use the Thuzio platform so we could do this cool video interview with Eddie. I'll remind all of our listeners to go to sportsbusinessradio.com. You can get our podcast there. You can find our YouTube channel there and watch this interview as well, so you can see these two handsome men. I got a face for radio, so at least you can look at these two handsome men. I want to thank Malka Sports for all of their help with this, Griggs Productions, and obviously Thuzio, and most of all, Eddie, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Hey, thank you. Hey, God bless you, Tiki. Thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Eddie.
listening to Sports Business Radio. We'll see you soon. Thanks, you guys.